Hello friends, welcome to my new series, YARNS, Conversations with Cruisers. This is a new podcast available in both video and audio format, where I just sit down with people I meet and hear their stories. I plan on doing this as I make my way around the world. None of these interviews are scheduled ahead of time. It's just people that I happen to meet, I find them interesting, and I asked them if they would like to sit down and tell me some of their sea stories. I hope you enjoy the video. You can also find the audio version wherever you get your podcast from. And let me know down in the comments what you think.
So, right, he saw the 25 and he thought 25 meters.
That is
so he comes
funny.
Walking down, just like, so we brought our boat in, we had to, strutting down this wharf like this, and he's got all these kids following him, and they're all like peacocking it down. And it was like, what was the tide? Like our spreaders were like at the, and he's looking for the boat. And we're like, yo, and he looks down, and his face, he was just like, and all these kids are like laughing, and they scattered. He's got these little shoes on. They had to climb down this like slimy metal ladder.
Oh my god.
Anyway, he was so pissed off.
When I was a little lass, mother up and told me, "Way, haul away, we'll haul away, Joe. Someday your love will call and take you out to sea. Way, haul away, we'll haul away, Joe."
Hello friends, welcome to another episode of Yarns. I'm here with Dave and Jaja Martin in their beautiful home. What town is this?
Bremen,
Maine. Stunningly beautiful. They circumnavigated on a Cal 25.
Yeah.
What year was that boat?
when dinosaurs roamed the earth.
It was a 1971 boat that my dad bought new, or 1970 boat, and then I rebuilt it in 1984.
Right.
And transformed it into not a Cal 25.
Yeah, I was
it just
gonna
looked
say,
like a Cal. It was
yeah,
like,
exactly. It was like a secret. It was like a wolf in sheep's clothing.
It was.
Yeah.
It was all.
But we started in 1989.
1989 is when you left for your circumnavigation.
Pretty much. And we did some sailing before that, but that was the beginning of the together.
Yeah, that's what we got married.
Circumnavigation.
Yeah, and you guys got married in Barbados, right? But where did you meet?
We met in the Virgin Islands. I'd set off to sail solo around the world. Pending relationships along the way. And I was in the Virgin Islands. I went to a hotel to get work, and I met Jaja a week later. And so we, instant love affair. And I wanted to cross the Atlantic alone, so I did that. I sailed solo across the Atlantic to England. Jaja had some other commitments, and then we got together in September in England, and then sailed 15 months to Australia and started producing children.
So you guys sailed east about then?
We went west.
We went to the
canal.
canal.
West, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so but you started in Seattle, is that correct?
I did, in 1983.
With your dad.
With my dad.
With your dad, and then you guys sailed down to Mexico?
We went to Mexico, through the canal, up to New York, and down to the Bahamas in a year.
Wow. All in that production
a stock boat. It was a stock boat. No, the lazarette lids, a friend of ours said, he came on the boat before we left. He said, these lazarette lids, go buy some screws and a tube of silicone and close those things off.
That's where I get the most water in my boat.
And raise the sill of your companionway up. And at least, and because the Cal 25, the gunnels are about that wide, and if you got to knock down the water, just pour it in. It was kind of scary. But,
you have a big cockpit on your boat too.
Yeah. And it fills up with water regularly.
Have you done anything? Have you mitigated
I oversized when I hauled out the first time, I oversized the drains, put in giant
your scuppers.
It drains pretty quick. Yeah.
Do they get clogged ever? Like you have to
I have to
watch
stay on
for
it.
that.
Yeah.
But I get pooped I've been pooped probably 6 times.
Did you ever think of
overflowing.
rising up your cockpit floor just so that you could hold less water?
I just close my eyes and pretend.
The thing is, the cockpit fills, and then the boat rolls over the next wave, and most of it goes out.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of the way.
Yeah, well, hopefully, you know.
First time it happened, it was very scary. The 5th time, I just rolled my eyes.
Yeah, we got pooped off the Oregon
Take
coast.
a bath while it's full.
Exactly.
Yeah, when my dad and I were off the Washington, Oregon, Northern California coast, we got a
That's Holly.
Pacific storm, August storm, and it was 45 knots. You know, huge Pacific storm, a lot of fetch, and you know the waves are just breaking over. We were dragging all kinds of things to slow down, and water was just pour in the cockpit and slam you against the bulkhead and everything. I thought it was great. To me, that was the most amazing experience. Was that first storm at sea? I thought it was great. Yeah, I really.
Well, how old were you?
I was 19.
Yeah, exactly. A young man of 19 years. That is like, you have zero concept of like consequences.
Here. This is what I wanted.
Just like, this is fantastic. This is living.
Yeah. So I thought it was the coolest thing. Was that storm? Yeah. Big waves, a little bit dangerous. It's like this is why I'm living.
So then you rebuilt the boat, which I saw one image I think on the documentary. So there's a documentary about their lives called Ice Blink. Yeah. Came out, was it by PBS or? I can't remember.
It was on PBS. Yeah. That's where it was first shown. Yeah. Way back in like
2006.
And you can see it on the Sailing Channel, whatever. Like they have it. You can find it to buy or to rent on one of these streaming platforms. I'll have the link in the description of this.
You know more about it than we do at this point.
Yeah. And
nobody wants DVDs anymore.
Yeah, so exactly.
We gave all. I wouldn't know what to do with one either.
So you rebuilt the boat. Yeah. And when I saw that, I was like, that makes a lot of sense. Like you bomb-proofed it. I
rebuilt the rudder, which you can appreciate. Yeah. So I made an indestructible rudder. I actually had a spare rudder, an emergency rudder. Rebuilt the chain plates, all the spreaders, tangs. The boat was bulletproof, and we never, we sailed about 50,000 miles. No problems.
Amazing.
Ever.
That's incredible.
No problems.
And then Jaja, what's your sailing background before you guys met?
Well, I grew up in New Jersey, first of all, and I can admit that,
You're not hiding it.
Yeah, the cool thing about Maine is that if you're from Massachusetts, people have like not very nice names for people from Massachusetts. But New Jersey's so far away, they're like, where is that? But anywhere else in the States, they're like, Anyway, grew up sailing small dinghies like albacores and 420 type sailboats, and then I taught sailing in the Caribbean on bigger boats and stuff for a while, and went to Europe and a company that needed people to run some boats, so I did some sailing in the Middle East and in Mexico and a lot in the Carib, and then the reason I went to St. John's is because I was tired of trying to chase a work visa, and it's American territory, so I could get a job, and that's when I met Dave.
Yeah. And how old were you at that point?
26, 25, something like that.
So you had been like working as a professional sailor for a long time.
Sort of. I would never ever consider myself professional anything. But I'm looking back, I guess because I was getting paid.
Exactly.
More felt like a beach bum that was hanging out on boats.
You're making ends meet by showing people how to.
And I just didn't care. Who cares? Just having fun. And I think Holly's way more focused for what she's doing than I ever was.
Yeah, and so this is a good time to talk about they're Holly Martin's parents of Wind Hippie Sailing. So that's just like exciting for me to get to interview two different generations on the podcast. I think that's pretty amazing.
It's really cool because before you came, I was upstairs talking to Holly on WhatsApp. We just send voice messages. And she's pinging me. This is Holly pinging me right now.
From around the world.
So it's really fun. They're in Venewa. She's in Venewa too.
Wildlife nowadays.
Kiting and
When we were cruising in the 80s, I would send a postcard, crossing the Pacific, be in touch in 3 months. If you could make a phone call, you'd go to the post office, there'd be a booth, you'd give them your passport, they'd make the call, you'd wait a half an hour, they'd say booth 2, and you'd make a phone call if you could get through. And you would talk. And then, Dick, I'll be out of touch, 2 or 3 months, don't worry about me. My dad would be like, yeah, cool. Let me know when you get somewhere.
Actually, your dad's like, when you'd say, I'll talk to you in 6 months, and it would be 3 months later, and he'd be like, did you leave yet?
That is hilarious.
Like, we're already across the Pacific. Oh, you left already?
That is so funny.
It was really funny.
But when I sailed alone, my dad would say, I wish you would not sail alone. I worry about you, and I wish you would have someone with you because sailing alone, it makes me worry. It's like, Dad, shut up, I'm fine.
But he never.
So fast forward 30 years, Holly's sailing alone, and I'm the dad, and
now you get it.
I've never said that, but I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's so funny when I interviewed her. I was like, and I already kind of knew the answer just knowing Holly. I was like, so did you have any solo sailing experience before you set off? She's like, well, my dad took me out for like 45 minutes, showed me how to use the wind vane, and then I just kind of went. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I knew that was going to be your answer, So
that's so Holly.
Yeah, it is.
When she bought the boat, I surveyed it for her, and it's like this good boat. I knew those boats. The Grins I've seen them all over the world, and we left from Massachusetts and short tacking out of the bay. One of the batteries was dead. I couldn't get the running lights to work. I brought a GPS. The one on nothing was working, and we're heading out for an overnighter. And we're like, let's just go. We're fine. And
I mean, her boat's not that different now.
No,
it's kind of in the same shape.
At least she waited to get her mainsail before she left.
Yeah,
I brought suction cup.
I was really happy because she wasn't going to.
I know.
Yeah, I brought suction cup running lights, and we stuck those on the boat and had a beautiful overnight sail with maybe just enough power. We turned the GPS on every hour. It's just up the coast of Maine. It was easy, and but that was really fun.
Yeah,
her brand new boat. Brand new 25-year-old boat, and that was good.
So when you guys left, when you guys started sailing as a couple, and I don't know, did you say you were gonna circumnavigate, or you're just going for a wander?
I was off.
Yeah.
I just wanted to sail.
Yeah.
That's all I ever wanted to do. And so I was just off, and we've never had a plan.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when you guys, but you went through the canal, and then where did you go from the canal?
Galapagos.
Marquesas.
Well, we went to the Perlas first, I guess. We did, because we didn't clear out of Panama. We couldn't afford it. It was $60.
Yeah.
And what year was that?
It was when Noriega was being ousted. So it was a lot of military.
Very sketchy.
People weren't going into the city. So we just left.
But at Canal Transit, because I'd been through a few years before with my dad, the boat had been measured. So it was $60
to get through.
To get through.
I think it's $2,500 now.
Yeah. It's a lot now.
Yeah. But we were provisioned, and we left Balboa and just kept going.
It was fun back then. You could get
away with that.
It was a 2-day transit.
So
you did a half-day transit with a group they put a bunch of yachts together in one basin thing, and then you'd go with your group and you'd stay in Gatun Lake overnight. There was a special little anchorage to spend the night in.
They would take the pilots off.
And then they slept them. It was not Guapos, South African boat.
Oh, really?
Quasi slept our pilot. Yeah.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then we had Pip and Alan, and they slept on Quasi also.
Oh, okay.
We couldn't sleep anybody on our boat.
Totally.
And there was a friend, and we were all friends.
Right.
And and you were supposed to supply them with food. And Quasi did that for us too. Anyway, it was really nice.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It was super fun to stay in the lake overnight, and the next day we went out to the other side. So I think you have to go through the whole.
5 years before we went through nonstop.
Oh right, but you went through with ships also.
We did.
Which is different than what we did.
Yeah. It was a win.
So then you guys arrived at Galapagos. How did they react about you guys not having clear out?
Well, we weren't allowed to go there.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, in Wreck Bay, you were allowed to stop for a week.
Only if you were under duress. We told them we needed water.
Right.
I've known 3 yachts that needed repairs, but they didn't let them leave the boat. And then I know 4 yachts that stopped and paid $3,000 now to visit.
So we went to Wreck Bay. We stayed a week. We cleared in. They knew it was all legit, and we cleared out. They said,
I'm really good at making paperwork look good.
Shout out to Dr. Oliver Pay.
Yeah. I'd already done it a bunch of times by then.
That's good.
We spent no money because it was expensive to clear in and out. We didn't have any money. So
it really wasn't, but we thought it was.
So we left Wreck Bay and they said, you must leave, don't stop anywhere else. We're like, gotcha. So we went to the next island that night, and we were anchored out. Way out because it was dark, getting dark, and these fishermen came along in a skiff, and they said, why are you out here? So we pointed up the reef, and they said, so they hopped on the boat and towed us through the reef and put us in an anchorage.
That is fantastic.
We dropped the anchor, and they said, you have to leave by 10 o'clock tomorrow because the cruise ship's coming and the authorities will see you. You go anchor over there, and no one will know you're there. So we did that, and then they told us to move again to stay out of the way of
Wow.
the
And
authorities.
it was really fun.
That
And we
is
gave him stuff.
It's like
it was-
cat and mouse.
We
It was
gave
great.
him stuff. I forget what.
We had-
like
we had
cookies
marbles
and-
on the boat.
Oh yeah, just to give away. We had cigarettes.
And this was late 80s, you said?
89.
89.
89.
Yeah.
It was fun.
That
it
was
was
awesome.
And it was beautiful. There was nothing on the
We
island.
dove
It
and
was really great.
pink flamingos and
Wow.
Yeah, it was a ton of stuff.
It was crazy.
And the sea lions would come in our dinghy and they'd swim with us, and it was really fun.
And then you pushed on to Marquesas. How was that
Yeah,
passage?
2 motos.
That must have been your
was
first big
fan-
passage together, right?
Fantastic.
Well, I guess
Great.
Galapagos is pretty far too.
Yeah,
it took us 2
Well,
weeks.
the Cape Verdes to Barbados.
We were we got becalmed going
Yeah, we were
to
23 days.
going to Galapagos. It took us
That was a long trip.
more than 2 weeks
Yeah.
because we ran out of wind.
But Galapagos to the
Yeah.
Fatihiba was 23 days, and we flew. And we were trying to break a 1,000-mile week, but we got
did
becalmed
well.
Oh, bummer.
at the halfway point.
Oh, bummer.
The same, yeah.
So you know how Holly complains about that her boat doesn't go very fast because she has this little engine?
Mhm.
We had a 6-horse Johnson outboard
Wow.
that lived in our back lazarette,
Mhm.
and when we needed to use it, we had to pull it out and put it on the back of the boat.
So you get circumnavigation with no inboard.
No engine.
No, it was
Fantastic.
an outboard.
But when we were getting close to a harbor, I mean, you know, an outboard, you can't put an outboard on the back of your boat and go in the ocean
Yeah, no.
because it just comes out of the water.
We had 15 gallons
So-
of gas. It was good
Right.
for 60 miles.
So it's just like I can only go. We're like, okay.
Shut up!
That is
Holly, be
so
quiet.
funny.
Yeah.
So
Oh
funny.
my god. We're just desperate to sail.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it was just. I mean, when I was rebuilding the boat in New York in Sewanaka Boatyard in Long Island, Oyster Bay, you know, I get all this flack. Oh, you can't do it. It's too dangerous. The boat's too small. It's unsafe. And it's like, you know, people who are afraid to do what you're going to do will tell you you're crazy.
Yeah.
And it's like, just like, oh, thank you very much. You know, and I'll keep that in mind. And, and
Hold the course.
It's like whatever. So.
We did
But-
get flack sometimes from people that thought we were endangering our children,
Yeah, I bet.
We got the
yeah.
endangered children thing. a few
especially
times.
when we were in South Africa. We were in Durban, and in South Africa, in order to leave, I think it's similar to New Zealand now, right? You have to have if you're a Kiwi and you want to leave, your boat has to pass certain.
Cap
Yeah,
line.
an
Right.
impossible requirement.
Right,
set of
you need,
requirements.
like,
For
a
New
bucket.
Zealand right now, it's insane.
You need
Yeah.
a bucket and a whistle and stuff. Right? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But, and so in South Africa, it was the same. And the minimum sized boat, I think, was like 29 or 28.
Something like that.
It was big.
Mhm.
And so when we were there were people, we stopped at this yacht club where it's on the docks. You know, we came in. And we got wind of the fact that there were people that were trying to stop us from continuing cruising because the Transkei coast is really dangerous. There's a lot of currents there, and that's where they get those notorious 100-foot waves and all that stuff.
No, but everyone's coastline is the worst in the world.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
and-
Every person.
I'm sure
we
it's
have worse
really-
currents than anywhere. People, I hear this
Right.
story everywhere.
Right, but I'm sure it's really bad. But like,
Yeah.
if there's a 100-foot wave out there, we're not going out.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
would you? Anyway,
Yeah.
so we actually left because
Yeah.
we were worried that people were starting to,
Yeah,
you know,
to organize.
yeah, and get around. And our kids
Yeah.
were small; they were 2 and 4. So
Yeah, so they had their children en route. Holly, they had your son Dave.
Chris.
Chris
Was
was
first.
born in Australia,
Bundaberg, Australia.
and then Holly was born in New Zealand,
Yeah.
and then Tegan was born in South Carolina.
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Yeah, she was
But
born
on
the
the
boat
circumnavigation, you had 2 children.
Yeah.
En route.
Yeah,
But Tiga was born on the boat.
before
Yeah,
we finished.
yeah, I heard
She
that.
was
We-
there.
Yeah, Holly told that story.
Holly got the cord.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
She was 4 years old.
Yeah, she said it was illegal to
have a midwife.
to have a midwife, right, at
Yeah.
the time, and so
Yeah.
you delivered it because the midwife like backed out at the last
We
moment.
didn't
or something.
have a midwife.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No, because we couldn't.
A midwife could deliver the baby at the hospital,
But not at home.
but not at home.
Mhm.
So we did it ourselves. But
And
we
that
had a
was-
midwife who kind of
Yeah, she
gave us.
did. She
We
was
read
crazy.
books.
Yeah.
You know,
Catcher's mitt.
there was no internet in those days, so we
Yeah.
had to read a book.
Well, it was the
But-
3rd child,
Yeah.
so you know.
It's amazing.
It worked out all right.
Yeah, it did. It worked out really well.
Yeah, it was fine.
Tega's awesome.
Yeah.
It is funny she gets seasick though. That is very
She's
funny.
an
Yeah,
Aquarius
isn't
too.
that
I mean,
funny?
go figure.
Yeah.
But you know, she's a diver. She's a dive master instructor, and she's out on boats all the time, and she loves boats.
Yeah.
she's a water kid. You know, she really is. So she does her thing. She still goes out and.
Well, you guys are tough stock, so not surprised by that. So you guys, let's talk about. I want to talk about sailing as a family in a moment, but let's think about. Can you recall your favorite memory of you guys sailing before you had children? I guess it was mostly in the South Pacific, right?
So what's your favorite memory?
Yeah, what's your favorite?
Should we do this in secret so that we see if they?
Well, I don't know what my favorite. I've never.
For
really
me,
thought about that.
before we had kids, what I like is actually sailing, not sitting in harbors for months, which we did when we had kids because they were in school. So we sailed from England to Australia nonstop, 15 months. We averaged. We just we'd stop for a week, but it was just a continuous day after day.
We went to a lot of places. Like, we stopped at every anchorage we could stop.
Yeah, I mean I think
really
there were 80 anchorages on that leg, and but it was just a year and a bit of just sailing, hanging out 24 hours a day together.
Yeah,
it was just amazing.
Yeah. England was fun.
We had a great time. We have a great time everywhere.
Yeah.
See, that's beautiful. And how long have you guys been married now?
34 years. Oh, I think Chris is 33.
That is amazing.
Yeah, so we met 35 years ago. So and it just.
And then when our kids were born, they weren't in school.
So what's your favorite memory? You haven't answered that question yet.
Well, I don't know. Before the kids, I mean, like you said, well, your answer is like the whole entire time before we had kids.
But you said the act of sailing, so like the passage making aspect.
Yeah.
Is there a place that stands out?
That's what we did. It's like that's what we were doing the whole time. Was Galapagos were really fun, actually. I really loved the Galapagos. Panama was fun, but kind of crazy.
And the Marquesas were.
The Marquesas were amazing.
Polynesia.
We had remember when that catamaran was drifting down on us on
in Spain.
Cape Finisterre area?
Oh, yeah.
That was crazy. That was kind of a memory thing.
But
I mean, that's not a favorite memory.
No, but it stands out.
You know what? I think the reason
I had to cut her anchor line.
The reason I think about it is because I didn't die. That's why I think about it.
Definitely.
And I didn't know that I was in trouble until like years later, and I figured it out. I'm like, whoa. I would never do that to anybody.
We got in our rowboat, and they dropped a 50-pound anchor in it and said, "Can you set this?" It blew, screaming in the harbor. We row out to set the anchor.
And I was in the front, and they had all this rope on me.
And it went overboard, and it miraculously missed all of her body parts. Wow.
And it was dark. It was like midnight. It was blowing what?
A lot.
30, 40. Yeah. Enough. And this huge catamaran was dragging. Like, we saved them.
Totally.
We saved them from wrecking their boat.
I wonder if they even know that.
I know. We saved them from wrecking their boat. We had to cut our anchor line. It's insane. It was insane. But like I kind of remember that because I didn't. I had no idea that, how it was.
Yeah.
So she didn't really
indestructible when you're in your 20s.
For sure.
So I just
I looked back and I'm like, whoa, I would never do that to anybody, and I would never be in that situation again if I knew what was going on. But
no, it was good because I'd been sailing a lot, and Jaja never made an offshore passage, and so we left England for Spain, and it's like, all right, it's fantastic. After having solo sailed, to have someone keeping watch.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, you're on, and just you look around if you see a ship, just change course or wake me up or something like that. It was, and trial by fire. But Jaja didn't get seasick.
It's such a rare thing.
Yeah, probably like
fantastic.
Holly's similar that way too.
Yeah, it just
poor Tika, she used to get car sick too. Get everything motion.
She's definitely a Martin. I get seasick, but I get over it really fast. But it can be brutal.
I've been so seasick I wanted to die. Like my first yacht delivery was 2015 up the coast of California, and I threw up every 15 minutes for 24 hours.
God.
Yeah.
Like I was like, okay, I'm gonna get my sea tattoos lasered off. I'm gonna find a new passion. I was like, this is like the worst thing ever. Yeah.
There's that poem about the
Mark Twain.
He goes in and he's gonna walk with his oar until someone says, "What's that?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but my favorite about seasick is the Mark Twain quote, right?
Okay, what is that one?
Where he says, seasickness, at first you're afraid you will die.
Oh, yeah.
And soon you're afraid you won't die. And there's no better description of seasickness.
No.
That is like...
It's so true.
fantastic.
It's really true.
Brutal. I haven't thrown up in years. Now it's like if I feel like my eyeballs aren't calibrated, then I'll take half a pill. And I'll feel like crap, but I don't.
So when we were navigating with the sextant,
it's hard. It's hard.
And you had to like know where you were, DR, write stuff down from the first day. I I acclimated much faster.
I bet.
Because I'd be down working the site. I just use a pencil and paper and did it all longhand. And you just to the point where you're just going to die and you have to get fresh air and you go back down. You can like bully your way through that.
I think if you're focused, like you have a job that you have to do.
Yeah.
But even pulling a site.
Yeah.
You know, so you guys did that whole circumnavigation celestial.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
But that was the technology back there. When we were in Mololilai in, what do they call that now? Musket Cove in Fiji. That was when GPS started to come. There was sat-nav before that.
Get it,
and most people did have sat-nav, but they weren't getting any fixes in the Pacific because they'd only get, it was useless.
Yeah.
And then GPS came in and people were talking about it when we were in Musket Cove for that season. And
those early 90s.
yeah, and what they were saying was, look, this is the GPS, it's showing me a mile in. Because the charts didn't match the GPS at all. So you'd put your fix on your chart, and it was you were in Suva, you were in Musket Cove or something.
Totally.
It was really ridiculous. So like the Mamamukas and the Yasawa Islands, they could not use their GPS or their sat nav they couldn't because the charts didn't.
An old friend of ours he just passed away. A guy named Paul Johnson. He said these charts were laid out line of sight. That's how they made them.
Yeah,
so just line up points and mountaintops, and you will stay in clear water. So, and we just had sketches. All of our charts were sketches.
But that's all.
I mean, I cruised down the Yasawas, and even with all the technology, I saw breaking waves that were not. You could see them on Google Earth if you zoomed in. You could see them.
Yeah.
They were not charted, and I was like, I'll just stay in the middle of them, hope for the best.
Yeah. You just sail with the sun behind your back.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know, and then there was no, we were in the Yasawas, there's no one there.
I didn't see many. That's actually where I met Holly.
Okay.
We both anchored off of they were anchored off of Yasawa Caves, and I came up and anchored right next to them. We corresponded when I was in Hawaii online before that. Yeah. But then I anchored and I was like, oh my gosh, like I realized that it was her, and they were hauling up to leave. Okay. But that's the first time I met Holly. Right at Yasawa Caves.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh wow. That's really neat.
Fantastic stretch.
When we were there, in order to go to the Yasawas, you had to get a special cultural visa. They were closed to cruisers, except for if you went to get a visa. So we had to go into Nandi to get the visa. Yeah. And because we had two babies that Holly had no stamps on her. She just had the one stamp on her passport when we came in. And they stole her passport. They wouldn't give it back to us. Because we went to get our cultural visas. So behind the desk, they gave you back three passports.
There's three. Where's the fourth passport?
And then they wouldn't give it to us.
We got it back.
That was the second time our passports were... When we were in the Cape Verde Islands.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, that was when it was only two of us.
Oh, that was a good memory.
We went to immigrate. Customs were great. They like shared their lunch with us and gave us rainwater out of these big barrels that they collected off the roof and blah, blah, blah. And they said, be careful of the immigration or something. We go to immigration and it's this like peacocky guy, you know.
In the Cape Verde Islands, you said?
It was in, which
Praia.
one? Oh, it was Praia. Yeah. And so we went in and we had to pull, we were anchored out and there was this wharf that was just huge and he's like, you have to bring your boat in. And he took our passports on the end. He made us fill out this paperwork, and he wouldn't talk to us because he said he didn't speak English. So I could speak French, and I spoke French to him and didn't speak French, and a couple words of Spanish. Didn't speak Spanish, but he wanted us to bring our boat in, and he wouldn't give us our passports back, and he's holding them like this and like threatening us and making us fill out this paperwork, which I did fill out. I just wrote Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, and all. I didn't know what it said.
But it said, how long is the boat? We figured that out.
How long is your boat?
We put 25, but they thought it was meters.
We think he thought it was meters.
So he was like, bring your boat into the dock. I want to go board this boat.
So the first thing I did is holding the passports like this and behind his big desk, and he wasn't going to give. He was like, So I climbed over the desk and grabbed him out of his hand and threw him down my shirt. Wow. And he was so pissed off. So we brought our boat in, and he thought, because we talked to another big catamaran later, and apparently he goes on your boat. He was like shopping on their boat.
Oh, he shakes you down.
Yeah.
They had to give him just like cigarettes and alcohol and whatever. So he saw the 25 and he thought 25 meters.
That is
so he comes
funny.
Walking down, just like so we brought our boat in. We had to strutting down this wharf like this, and he's got all these kids following him, and they're all like peacocking it down. And it was like, what was the tide? Like our spreaders were like at the level, and he's looking for the boat. And we're like, yo, and he looks down, and his face, he was just like, and all these kids are like laughing, and they scattered. He's got these little shoes on. They had to climb down this like slimy metal ladder.
Oh my god.
Anyway, he was so pissed off. He was so mad at us.
We didn't clear out of there either.
And we didn't clear out. Yeah, we didn't clear out it.
It's like if you're never going back to the Cape Verdes, why would you clear out?
Yeah.
And I was good at paper.
No, we didn't clear out of Panama.
And we didn't clear out of Barbados either.
And then we got to the Galapagos, and we did clear out. And we didn't clear it to the French Polynesia because you had to put a bond down, which we didn't have any money. So,
but you couldn't in Fatuhiva.
So you had to go to Papeete, so we just ignored it.
Yeah.
And then we got to Americans, and we went to the
Cook Islands. Of people didn't clear into.
Yeah, those are different days.
And we got
so hardcore now.
Nobody cleared in.
We got to American Samoa 3 months later, and our paperwork was so out of date, and we just
They told us we had to go back.
We bullshit.
American Samoa was the worst place I've ever been, ever.
They were really awful.
Me too.
Yeah.
I had to deal with 12 officials. The worst harbor I've ever. I drug 300 meters one night in a blow
with plastic bags around your anchor.
It was just the worst experience I've ever had cruising.
Yeah. Even when we were there, people were dragging in the harbor.
We ended up
with
so much garbage.
Somehow.
Someone gave us some mooring.
Yeah, it was crazy.
We weren't there that well. We were
that
there
is so wild. That,
such
a short time now. I guess that isn't a short time. That was a long time ago. But now it's so strict. It's like you cannot. There's no way you can get away with it.
Well, there was no electronics, anything.
Right.
So
what we said in those days is like someday. It's going to be like air travel, where they're going to know when you're leaving and they're going to know when you arrive, and the day has come.
But now,
but the funny thing,
they're going to know because we're telling them on this little device thing.
The funniest thing is, like, you have to send in all your paperwork ahead of time, but then you show up, you still have to fill out all that same paperwork, and then you fill out the exact same paperwork to clear out. It was like in French Polynesia, I was in Bora Bora, and when I left Papeete, they were like, make sure you email us and let us know that you're going to Leeward Islands, and we're going to send your paperwork, and then it'll be easy. You'll just clear out.
So they email it to you, or
they say that you're supposed to. But I get to Bora Bora to clear out, and it took me like 4 days to clear out of Bora Bora.
Oh, wow.
Because I had to fill out all the same paperwork. And like, now we have to mail this to Papeete, and they have to stamp it and mail it back.
Oh, God.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And like, luckily I had a big weather window, because I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
All right.
You know, I was like, but I was fine.
So for Holly, I don't know how she would do it if she didn't have me doing, like, she'll say, I'm going to get into Vanuatu in 4 days. Can you email, she sets me up, so it's really easy for me to do it.
Yeah.
Like, she does all the work. And then I just have to write and say, Holly's coming in 48 hours or 24, whatever they want. And, whatever I'm supposed to say and send, I just do. She has loaded it all up, so it's easy for me to send it on to the authorities. And then I just hope that it works for her when she gets there, because both of us
She's pretty good at, like, just kind of, like, figuring her way out.
Yeah,
it's like she sailed through the Panama Canal. I don't know anyone that's, talked their way into being able to sail through most of the Panama Canal. But nowadays, they're like, you have to be able to go 5 knots, or there's like, this and that. It's like, they have...
Do you know why Holly can get away with all this stuff?
Why is that?
Because her mother is Jaja. She was the same way when I met her. It's like, we can't do that. That'll be fine.
So here's a super interesting story. When we went through Panama, and we stayed in Katoon Lake, like we talked about, and you see the same boats, and then going through the Marquesas, you see this one or that one, and we were all going quite fast. And then we got to New Zealand, and we met up with one couple that had a baby the same time we had our baby, which was sort of 9 months later, and that was Chris, born in Australia, Christopher David. So we met them in New Zealand when Chris was about a year old, and they had a baby that was about a year old, and his name was Christopher David.
Whoa.
Isn't that wild?
Very bizarre.
Very bizarre. And then Pip and Alan had a baby too.
Yeah.
Okay, so they went from Denmark, right?
Yeah.
Is that where their boat was? They had a 21-foot lifeboat that he had decked over and put a metal keel on.
That is crazy.
And they capsized in the Pacific and they were tiny, tiny little people.
I think it was en route to New Zealand from Fiji. They
capsized and they couldn't right the boat. And water got contaminated, and Pip was pregnant. They were tiny, like really small people.
Yeah.
Small people too.
Yeah, that helps.
And
but they got the boat righted.
They were 30 days.
Dismasted, but they got the boat righted.
Did they get it righted?
Yeah.
Well, they couldn't be in it though. It was full of water.
Well, they got the boat to New Zealand.
Right, and they drank
somehow.
their water got contaminated with battery acid.
Yikes.
Yeah.
It took them 30 days floating.
She bailed.
Yeah, she left.
So all these boats.
That would do it.
So all these boats we met with.
That was a crazy story.
Who had kids en route? All of the women bailed with the kids, and then the guys became these lonely old men on boats.
Except Jaja.
Jaja stayed.
So you guys, how was it sailing with small children? I mean, on the documentary, there's the funny scene where you guys talk about Chris ended up in a little.
All right.
In a little nook, but like, how was it?
Vegetable bin.
It must have been very tricky. Like, how do you learn that? You know.
Well, I think you don't not learn it. All right, so here's a story. Like when we were after Tika was born, and we switched boats. We were about 9 months or a year in North Carolina while we went from our 25 to our 33-foot boat. And during that time, Cruising World was a thing that was happening. And so people would call and ask for advice. And I had a woman call, and she said, I'm going on this cruise with a bunch of people on a sailboat. It was like a big boat. And we're bringing our 2-year-old, and, I don't want to be in charge the whole time, but I want to feel really safe and want my kid to be really safe. And I'm really nervous about it, and I want to have a fun time. So what can I do to make this really safe she was really worried, without being so worried? And I said, the only reason that your child is going to be safe is because you're really worried. And she hated that answer. She's like, yeah, but what can I do to not worry? I'm like,
you have to be very aware of everything.
You can't.
Right.
You can't trust anyone else to look after your child except you. Honestly.
Yeah.
Because it's your kid.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have like 2 people looking after your kid, one is going to think the other one is looking after. Like, I've seen this happen on boats.
But from our perspective, because guys will ask me, how did you get your wife to go sailing with you?
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, when we met, we weren't married. We were just dating. And it's like, do you want to go on my boat? And
no one's married when they meet.
This is true.
Well, it depends on which country you're from.
Okay.
Some countries, this could be true.
Yeah. Is that how many goats your dad had?
Yeah. So I said, the only reason... So we met. I said, do you want to live on my boat? She's like, cool. I'll live in your boat. So our relationship evolved from that moment forward. So there was no coercing. And it just was. That was just what our relationship was. And it was the same with kids. We'd never had kids before. We weren't living in suburbia with car seat and all this stuff.
Right.
And we had to transition onto a boat. We started with a 2-month-old on a windward passage, 9 days to New Caledonia from Australia.
Wow.
Into the trades.
That was a little bit tough.
It was brutal, but that became our new normal.
Yeah.
That was normal.
Mm-hmm.
Sailing with kids this is how you raise kids.
Well, we also had, so we didn't have a lot of stuff, and we didn't accumulate a lot of stuff, because you don't.
You don't. On a small boat, you do not.
You don't, and you don't need it.
Yeah.
But we always had, like, I always thought in my head, if it's horrible, we'll just quit.
We can stop.
Mm-hmm.
We'll
Totally.
stop,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll go somewhere else and do something else.
We can always stop.
So that was always the out. Like we don't have to, no one's forcing us to stay on a boat.
Totally.
And so knowing that you can quit and just walk away anytime kind of makes it like, do you want to quit? Well, yeah, but do you really want to quit? Oh no.
Not this year.
You know,
Yeah.
so like let's just try it a little more, and
It's the same.
like definitely hardships, and then getting over hardships, and then learning what you can do and what you can endure, and how to solve like little problems, and it works. You know, like, well, how do nappies work?
I mean, you move into the
figure it out.
Yeah.
You move into the severe of what your danger parameters are. It's the same when you're in the Arctic and there's icebergs and fog, and the radar is useless because you can't distinguish icebergs from the land.
I know, it's really hard. Like, is
but
that
you
an
become-
iceberg or an island?
Wow.
But you
that.
just become.
I'm just going to be a crew, though. I get to watch a fancy boat. I'm just going to be like, ooh,
but you'll see it.
Yeah.
You'll see.
But
what
you
it is.
become.
Maybe it's better now.
You just become acclimated to that new level of stress and danger, and it flattens out after a while. You're aware of it, but it all just seems, for us anyway, that's why we, I think, survived so many years. The new danger, and it's like, okay, this is the parameter, and it's like, that's not that bad really, and you just relax, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And as you sail farther and further, reef anchorages, sailing through the Tuamotus.
Yes.
With a sextant.
You know what? Back then, people weren't. People with sat nav weren't going to the Tuamotus. There was nobody there, because there was Charlie's charts. Remember?
Yeah.
Which we had sketched. Someone had a book, and we had tracing paper sketches.
Wow.
And that's what we had. And the book wasn't even accurate, and there were no tide tables, and there were currents, and
Those
a lot of
so
boats.
Insane.
Yeah.
We left Uapu.
A lot of boats weren't going.
We did an overnighter. I forget, we're going to Apataki or something. I think we ended up at Apataki. We figured out that's where we were. So sunrise and doing star sites, a trio of star sites. So I can know where we are, because we have no idea where we are. We've gone slow all night. We're 18 miles from where I thought we were because of the currents.
Yeah.
We sailed from Tonga. We had to go to the Lau group to get to Suva. It got cloudy for 2 days. We hoped too. We couldn't approach the Lau group not knowing exactly where we were.
Totally.
And
so
then,
we had to just hope to and wait for the sun.
Going into Apataki, there were no charts. We had a tracing paper. We had you can see through it, and it had just some pencil lines that I made on it.
Yeah.
And so we knew where the pass was, sort of.
Yeah.
And so then you sail by it, and you're like, okay, there it is. But there's no picture of like the bommies.
Yeah.
Who knows where they are? And then we got into that pass, and
It's
we
like,
were
the current's coming in.
sucked in, and like sideways.
Yeah.
We're like,
which is like even worse, because then you have no steerage.
So
We had no
I'm on the
steerage,
bow,
yeah.
like, and you're like, are there any bombies? And I'm like, I don't know, like looking, and we just got pushed in, and it all worked out really well. But and then we had to say, okay, what time is it? And the current is coming like this. So how are we going to get out? And what time should we try? And like when there was nobody there, and like it doesn't matter. It was great. There was no one anywhere.
Yeah, we were just recently we were in Tahiti.
It was really cool.
2 years ago. A friend of ours, they loaned us their Baba.
Oh yeah.
Their Hans Christian.
Oh yeah. Great
And
boats.
yeah, you can have a boat. It's like you'll loan us your boat and reef anchored, reef islands.
Yeah.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah.
So GPS, chart plotter, all that stuff. And when we'd sailed there, we went from Moorea to Wahine, and we close the reef in the morning. We know where we are. The sun comes up. We go in, and on the 25.
It was hard though.
I looked in the logbook. We hove to.
Because we couldn't
At
see.
midnight, because it's like we're not getting anywhere near this island.
Yeah.
We have no
What's
idea.
funny is I had to heave to between Moorea and Huahine
Hmm.
because I was going too fast, and I
Oh.
didn't want to do that. Even with all my stuff, I didn't trust it,
Right.
and I waited till first light. But
Yeah.
it's the same thing because I was just flying on my
Yeah.
passage.
And there
Yeah.
weren't the navigational marks. It was mostly ranges.
Mm-hmm.
Like now everything is buoyed. You go
Yeah.
between the buoys, but then
It was all ranges.
most of them were ranges. It was all
Yeah.
on shore. And sometimes we'd go past the pass to like look at it, and then go back up and look at it. And there were some that we didn't go into because they didn't look good.
You never really knew where you were.
Especially, like you said, in Tuamotu, everything looks the same.
It's all the
Yeah.
same.
It's like you can't see it until you're 4 miles away.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's just a smudge, and you're like, what am I even looking at? I don't even know. Yeah.
All you see are coconut palms.
It's so easy nowadays with everything we have.
I know. So now you know where you
Yeah.
are. And the other thing about the Tuamotus was on every Tuamotu that we went to or went past or saw any shoreline of, there was a shipwrecked Korean longliner.
Wow.
Yeah, bunch of everywhere.
Yeah. So I was
Crazy.
one of my jobs. I was
Rusting out.
changing zinc anodes on Korean longliners in Pongo Pongo Harbor, over the Starfish Tuna Factory. So you put your gear on, you have a pneumatic hose, and you would take the old you chisel out the cement they put where the nuts are. You take there were 20 zincs. You take the zincs off and you put new ones on.
That was a crazy job.
That was a crazy job.
Gnarly.
But I got to go up on these Korean longliners.
Oh,
This guy who had the contract to do this, like, hey, you need to go check out these boats.
Bill.
And you go up on the bridge. There was a steering wheel, a compass, and an RDF.
Wow.
That was these fishing boats.
Yes.
And
Those are the radio signal rangefinders, right?
yeah.
Yeah. That's what like the Roths used, I think, is how Roth.
We had.
That's what we
had
I
one.
loved it. Yeah, Sextant and a radio direction finder.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we found. You never knew how far away you were, but you knew that you were headed in the right direction.
Right.
So when we went to Praia, right?
The Cape Verdes, it was Sahara.
We had that, and we had, luckily on our charts, they were contour line charts.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had the signal, and it was like PRA. I'm like, okay, that's the Praia.
It's the airport.
And it's the airport. And I used to fly little planes, so I was like, okay, if I was gonna put an airport, remember, I would put it here. And so we decided that was where the signal was coming from.
Oh my gosh.
And based on that information, we sailed right into the harbor.
I mean, it's just
But you were correct.
Yes.
Yeah, we went right
That's-
into
Fantastic.
I mean, it's just amazing we never
But
had
it's true. Like, why wouldn't it be there?
We never sank our boat.
Anyway, yeah, it is.
But we were so confident. Not overconfident.
But see, I don't think it's amazing. I think it's
It's
good
It's
seamanship.
logic.
Yeah.
It's logic. Because like
And
And
it's
you're
youth.
You're paying attention
yeah,
too.
but like Matissier sunk all 3 of the boats he owned.
Yeah.
Every single boat he ever owned, he sunk.
Yeah.
And Paul
So,
Johnson said
you know,
it's
it's not by chance that you guys did completely wild stuff
Yeah.
and did not sink your boat.
Right.
Let's talk about the Arctic stuff.
Yeah.
So you
Oh,
got
yeah,
the
that's very
33-foot
fun.
steel boat. What was that?
That was a Karoff design. Karoff, the Chatham 33. A Karoff French designer, Chatham 33. It had been built in Brittany, France, in
someone's backyard.
It was a pretty rough boat.
Pretty
and
rough.
when we were crossing the equator from Africa to the Caribbean, we were becalmed for 2 weeks. We don't have water, we just sit. And running out of water, and it's hot, and we're swimming off the boat. And
we had 2 little kids.
and Josh was like, I would love to circumnavigate Iceland. That's what we should do next. So that was why we decided we need a steel boat. So like, all right. So we finished. We got to North Carolina. Tia was born. We're looking for a steel boat, and we found this one 10 miles away in a boatyard, and 33 feet, and the price wasn't bad. And I asked the boatyard how long it had been sitting there. I said over a year. It's like, gotcha. So we made a bid on this boat with the broker.
The guy was in Singapore. That
Offered half the asking
It was
price.
a mess.
Yeah, it was a mess. Offered, there was no rush though. Offered half the asking price, and the broker said, I can't accept that. I said, fine. And he's like, well, let me take your name. So we got the boat cheap. My dad was building spars in LA for Pacific Seacraft. He worked for LaFell.
Oh, nice.
So I said, Dad, how much for a mast? I said, well, I'll get one on a truck to you. It'll be like $1,000 for a mast. I was like, okay, because the boat needed a new mast. So we got a new mast for it and rebuilt it. The engine was good. It had been sandblasted and all gripped inside and out in the Ivory Coast when these Canadians were taking it to the States. And, it was an $18,000 boat, and we lived on it for 12 years. Probably put $40,000 into it, make it a boat we could sail.
And you gutted it and like redid the whole interior the way you wanted, right?
Yeah. Yeah, about 40 sheets of plywood and built a new interior. Back when plywood was $18 a sheet. And Yeah, we built it in.
Bread was $5 a loaf.
Oh my God, eggs were 5 cents. Yeah, and no, and then we left. And Tigger was born, and the boat wasn't finished, so we went to the Bahamas for a winter to finish it.
Okay.
Is it light enough?
I think so. Yeah. It's all good.
Yeah, so we ended up with that boat, and the boat found us, and like everything else in life, everything finds us, and we just go with it. And yeah, it wasn't the perfect boat, but for a 33-foot boat, it was massive. It was really safe.
Yeah.
And it was kind of insulated,
especially in the Arctic.
And you know, it had a 700-mile cruising range because it had a 100-gallon diesel tank. The keel was the diesel tank, and I put about a used diesel heater, Pacific. I can't remember the brand name, but it was the Pacific model diesel stove. It was like a wood stove. It was about that big.
Oh yeah, what was that called?
Holly said that was like in the middle of the room, right?
Yeah.
You said
we built the cabin around the stove.
That is fantastic.
Because like, okay, we have a stove with a 5-inch stack. Where can we put the stove? There's beams. There's a hatch. Okay, the stove has to go here. So I built the cabin around the stove.
But same with our house. We're built around our stove. That's our only heating. Well, we have radiant floors, but that heats our whole house.
That's we heat with wood. We're also solar.
That's cool.
We're all batteries. Basically a house in the woods.
How long did you guys spend in the Arctic?
5 years.
5 years. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
crazy.
So
it was really nice.
We sailed to Iceland for the summer.
Really gorgeous.
And we were going to go to Scotland for the winter. And
we go to Denmark, remember? Yeah.
So then Iceland was amazing. It's like, oh, we should stay here. So we went to immigration. We got a visa to stay over winter. Sure, you guys can stay. So we overwintered for a year, and then we went to Norway, and for the summer, and then we were going to go back to Denmark for the winter. And we thought, wow, Norway is really cool. So we kept going north, and we got to the Lofoten Islands, and it's like, this is amazing. And it was September.
We kept going north and north and north, and we're like, we're never going to get back.
We're at 68 north. We're at 68 north, and we're like, it's September. We need to stop. And we ended up 2 years there, and all kinds of immigration problems that we stayed 2 years. Then we sailed back and through Iceland and Greenland, and
still hadn't been to Denmark.
So
we never made it.
We never sailed to Denmark.
It's so funny.
We
flew there.
Yeah, we never had. We had like a big picture. We were going to be out, and once you get to a place, your whole perspective changes.
Yeah.
And you see it in a different way, and then just go with it.
And the experience, the richness of life is greater if you have the flexibility and the willingness to be like, let's just hang out here for a year.
Yeah.
You get a different experience entirely.
We were established with the magazines, so we're making good money. I was selling photos. We were writing articles, one a month. You could make a living writing in magazines.
If you live on a boat and you don't spend any money.
Yeah, exactly. Living under is pretty cheap.
Probably couldn't live on land.
But Cruiser was paying $1,200 to $1,500 for an article, $400 for photos. It was doable. And
so a really funny thing is when we would do these little lecture things too, and invariably you get the 3 questions, right? I'm sure you get it. Have you seen any pirates?
Yes.
Number 1. What was the worst storm you were ever in? Okay. How do you afford it?
Exactly.
So
it's the same question.
Okay.
Year
that hasn't changed since 1989. So the money question, right? It wasn't until we came to land and tried to live on land, and I'm like, oh, that's why they're asking what you do for money.
Yeah.
Because you can't live on land for what we live on the boat for.
Yeah. So everyone's perception or perspective is like totally skewed.
They're thinking, I want to have all this, and I want to have a boat. I'm like, okay, we don't have a house, we don't have a car, we don't have a bank account, we don't have insurance, we don't have electricity or gas or blah, blah, blah. All we have is this boat.
It's just food.
We don't own a car,
right.
We're rich.
We don't stay in marinas, we don't take tourist tours, we don't go, paragliding.
So my favorite answer when someone says, what do you do for money? I'd say, well, sometimes we use a credit card and sometimes we use cash.
Yeah, exactly.
But what do you do for money? It's like, either one of them work.
Yeah.
If they don't clue into that.
Yeah.
It's like, are you independently wealthy? It's like, We're cruising on a 25-foot sailboat.
Do you think that...
Do you think that we're independently wealthy?
Yeah.
Oh, we are. We were.
Yeah.
We fished for it in our life. We were
But
as rich as anyone else.
In
we
Indonesia,
saw the same sunset.
We spent a lot of time in Indonesia, way remote islands. Cruisers hadn't been to these places in years. And they thought we were poor because we had to live on a boat. Because if you were poor, you lived on a boat. And if you had any money, you got to live in a house on land or a hut kind of thing.
That's interesting. It's like the exact opposite of people's thoughts in America.
Yeah.
So this is a big question I want to ask you guys. Because I've had this conversation with a bunch of my cruising friends who are all circumnavigating right now.
Yeah.
How hard was it to go from that life to this life?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't know. I can't get my head around how I could, like, decide, okay, I'm done sailing, now I'm going to go back to living on land and working. I don't know, like, how was that? I know it was different for you guys because you did it for your children.
Yeah.
So at least you're like, okay, we're doing this for our family.
I was kind of ready. I'd been cruising.
Before I was,
Yeah, I'd been cruising for 20 years. We've been in Maine 20 years. I went cruising 40 years ago last month.
Wow.
That's how insane it is when I was 19. And I'm almost 60. So it's, like, whoop, time goes by. I was feeling a little bit fatigue of the repetitiveness of going to the next place and just the sameness of the sailing life.
Yeah.
There's a sameness to it, which is very exotic and what we all like to experience. But I was getting a little bit bored of that.
Yeah. And
I'm really a builder and a doer, so I need to be actively making something.
Yeah, totally.
At all times. But coming to shore and then getting jobs and a place to live, and we bought this property pretty much after we arrived, and Jaja had a really hard time. She would sit at the sliding glass door of this house we're renting in Round Pond, this winter rental we rented for the winter, and just look out at the harbor, and that was tough.
It's okay. I've always been like doing the kids, so that it's like you said, when you're seasick and you're focused, you can not be so seasick because you have to focus on your job.
Yeah.
And kids are 24/7, you know,
totally.
and you're not doing one thing at a time. If you have 3 kids, you're doing at least 3 things at all times, and you don't have time to do everything in one day. You're not going to finish what you have to do. So, like, as far as transitioning from a boat to a house, it was definitely easier, like with running water and hot water and a shower
space.
And so there was that, but we did it for our kids. Like for me, it was that I wanted to give our kids continuity in their education, and I wanted to, because they were starting to be Chris was in 8th grade when we came in, so right before high school. And I thought, we chose this sailing life because we wanted to do it, and if maybe they don't want to do that, they should be able to choose what they want to do. They want to do dance or soccer or play the saxophone, I don't know. And so they did all that stuff. They got to do what they wanted to do. And then friends, friends are so important for kids.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
socially, I think it's very important.
Like now, there's definitely cruising communities, and there's kid stuff everywhere for cruising kids. But I think it's very
homogeneous.
Well, not that. It's that you move around, and then you have to say bye to your friends. You're not. It's different than living in one little community and knowing your friends for 3 or 4 years. You get a deeper friendship. And cruising kids probably get into a deeper friendship more quickly.
I don't know, but then if kids are in school, public school, they're forced to deal with things they don't want to deal with. There's, hazing. Chris had a hard time until he figured it out, and until he met another kid who just circumnavigated, and they became good friends. They were in the same class, and so that worked out really well. They kind of saved each other, and then you need to learn how to deal with assholes. Yeah, it's a fact of life. You're gonna have to deal with people who I've worked in a lot of shops. You come in as the new guy. There's always one guy who's gonna try to make your life impossible, and it's like whatever, and but you need to know how to do that. But when we were cruising with our kids and we put them in school in Scandinavia, in Norway and Iceland, we got to know all the parents because we were in the school, and we got to know. They made friends. We got to know the friends' parents.
It was really fun.
It was really fun because we met other cruisers who were just sitting on their boat day after day out through the dark winter.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, how do you meet people on shore? Like, well, let me tell you. And
we also like it seems like cruisers tend to stick with their fellow countrymen as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's like all the Americans will hang out, like all the English will hang out. It seems like and I understand like language barriers and stuff, but I know in the documentary it was interesting. Chris talking about, I didn't know that you didn't have to learn a whole new language when you went to a new school.
Yeah.
Such an interesting sort of
like
wow. And Icelandic cannot be an easy language to learn.
So they did learn really quickly.
Wow.
But when we were in Svalbard in the Lofoten Islands up in Norway, we were the only boat that wasn't a Norwegian boat.
Yeah.
100% of the boats except for us were from Svalbard in the Lofoten Islands. They weren't even
because no one else is that hardcore.
They weren't even from the mainland. I think probably people go there now. It's really beautiful. But I took a Norse course, a Norwegian language course, and I had friends and we spoke Norwegian. Nobody wanted to speak English, and I played orchestra. I played cello in an orchestra, and we spoke Norwegian. That was you had to learn.
That is fantastic.
So I'm not really great. The kids are pretty good in Norwegian. They learned really quickly, and I volunteered in the school. So, kids speak Norwegian. So you just learn, you pick it up, and I don't know. If we had stayed longer, I would have been more fluent, I think. But I was getting there.
And then, so what's y'all's future plans? Do you have future plans for cruising?
This goes around.
That comes up a lot too. That question.
When are you gonna go cruising?
That's one of those questions.
I don't know.
We didn't even launch the boat this year.
I do boat trips. I sailed
you do.
48-foot catamaran to Florida last fall, and we sailed it back from my friend Robin and I sailed it back from Nassau to right here in Maine last April.
That was a fun trip.
That was great. 48-foot catamaran, Chris White catamaran, old school boat out of the 80s, low bridge deck. You can actually see forward. We average 200 miles a day. 260.
It's insane, right?
It's just
it's crazy.
Amazing.
The numbers that they do.
The numbers.
So when when you were going with Rob to the Bahamas, when you went down and there was a hurricane, they had to stop, and it was the same time as when Holly and Tiga were sailing from Fiji to
we left on the same day.
New Zealand.
That's funny.
So I had you on that, your GPS thing, and then I had another tab open with Holly and Tiga. I'm like, everyone's at sea. And luckily Chris was home. And Chris is great.
Yeah, Chris is probably racing cars. I don't know what's more dangerous. Going to sea.
But so you guys, have you done any cruising on other people's boats recently, or?
No, just when we went to Tahiti. But I run a sailing camp in the summer, every summer for kids. So we've got these beautiful kunais. It's been raining a lot, but still it's amazing how much sun you get anyway.
Yeah. Maine is fantastic too. Oh, there's hi baby.
Right now it's so hot in other places, other parts of the. He loves everybody.
So if we went cruising again, I would want to go north or south. High latitude.
Yeah.
Is so much more interesting than the tropics.
Yeah.
You're gonna love your
cruise.
Cruise.
I've always wanted to. And the captain
I learned to love it.
The captain I learned to sail under is Celia Bull. She has a custom high latitudes boat. I sailed in the Orkney Isles, the first place I ever sailed. And
nice.
she's based in Egg in Scotland.
Oh, okay.
And so we're working out a thing to do
the
Northwest Passage in a couple of years with her boat.
So cool.
I'm very interested in high latitude.
Yeah.
But preferably on a boat made for such things. Not on my 30-foot fiberglass boat.
Yeah, fragile fiberglass.
You're gonna love.
I can't wait.
St. John is beautiful. Actually, they have a 50-meter pool if you're a swimmer.
Wow.
Really interesting.
Joshua would know.
I'm a swimmer.
Joshua would know about that. She knows where all the pools are across the world.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll also do a cold dip in Greenland just to do it.
Oh yeah, you have to do that.
It's
Greenland is really cool.
Just the high latitude.
The culture is really interesting, and because it was owned by Denmark. I think when we were there, they were changing the administration over to having
to native peoples or
indigenous.
The high latitudes though are just they're so
art
rich.
is beautiful. I
mean, Spitsbergen was just the apex. It was the highest we went, but it was just stunning. There's so much freaking noise. It drives me crazy. And I mean, there's leaf blowers and lawnmowers and motorcycles. The guys with the Harleys that have to, be 200 decibels when they pass you. And there's just so much noise. There's jets, you can hear them overhead. And in Spitsbergen, it drives me crazy. There was no noise.
Wow.
There was no, on a day where there was no wind, which was pretty frequent, there was no sign that there was anyone else around you.
You could hear birds' wings flapping.
Each individual feather.
It's like silence on like a John Cage level.
It was just, it was so quiet. It was a vacuum.
Except the audience is noisy.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a vacuum. It was so. It's like being becalmed at sea. When it's just so flat calm and there's just no noise. That to me that is what I would look for. And then even being back in Tahiti a couple years ago, I mean, it was really nice. It was warm.
It was very nice.
It was beautiful. Tahiti is, Moorea is just
stunning.
Wahine is stunning. It's just
Moorea, like that view in the anchorage is just like, this is insane.
We came
this
in there.
This is so insane.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I know.
But you're worried about thieving.
Yeah.
There's thieving, and you can't leave your dinghy. You can't leave your boat. Wahine is even worse, and it's like
it didn't used to be like.
It wasn't like that when we were there, but
I know.
The Caribbean it's just the thieving, and in the north there was never. We tie up in villages, these little fishing harbors in Iceland, and there was no fees. You just tie up.
People would the fishermen we'd be off with our kids, and we'd come back, and someone had put a fish in our. Giving us a cod.
Or if we were in the way, they would just move the boat and tie it up again somewhere else. It was always fine. And
we had one.
We never locked the boat.
We were in one fishing harbor, but there were no other cruisers either.
Right.
I think it's different now. We were in one fishing harbor, and we were tied up. Like you tie up with the fishing boats, so we were, steel boat doesn't matter. We were tied up with all the other fishing boats, and there was someone to maybe rafted up outside of us, and then. They'd get up early to go fishing, and they knew that we had 2 kids and
3 kids.
3 kids, yeah.
You've forgotten already.
And, they untied early in the morning, and they drifted out so they wouldn't start their engines next to us.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, really nice.
That is fantastic.
Well, 2 kids that would wake up because Tiga slept next to me. She did wake up.
So, let me see how much battery. I think we're okay. One thing that's interesting to me about you guys, when I started, when Holly told me your stories and I started looking into you ahead of this, and this is this podcast, I started specifically to have conversations with people who consider themselves ordinary people.
We're very ordinary people, actually.
That do extraordinary things. So like me and Holly, for every one of me and Holly, there's 1,000 other cruisers having the same experiences, or even wilder, that no one ever hears about. So that's why I started this entire project. And the only famous people that I've interviewed is Holly and Lynn. So, okay. So, I had to change the battery because the battery died. One thing I want to say is I was interested in finding out about y'all's story because what you guys did was on par or even more insane than what the Pardees were doing, the Smeatons were doing, the Roths were doing, everyone. But you guys didn't publish a ton of books. I know you wrote 1 book, right?
Yeah.
But you guys were just living it.
We're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is fascinating to me. And how many more out there, how many more sailors out there did totally bonkers stuff that people that aren't household names in sailors' homes.
Yeah. I mean, for us, the magazine.
That's true.
I mean, it's not what you know, it's who you know in life. And my friend was editor of Cruising World, technical editor, Ralph Naranjo. I'd worked for him for a couple years. We were good friends. And he finally said, Martin, you've got something to write about. You've got 2 kids on a small boat. You've got a story. Send us something. So we bought a $3 typewriter and wrote our first article. And we sent it in. And then they came up with this cruising thing of the year award. And we won all these. And it's we love it. Just keep going. And it just started it.
Yeah.
And the stuff we sent in was severely edited when we saw it in print.
Right.
So then we learned how to write based on what they were changing.
What they were wanting.
So we learned to write what they wanted, and our stuff started becoming edited less and less. As we made money, I went from my Yashica crap camera gear and bought decent Nikon with real lenses and zooms and stuff, and put the money back into gear and started selling more photos because I had actually some really high quality, using Fuji 100 film, and the Kodachrome was too slow. The 64.
No one knows what you're talking about.
That doesn't matter.
Yeah. But you upgraded
you
as
can
you
look
went.
it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fujichrome 100 was the Provia. The Provia 100 was what the pros were using. A guy, Billy Black, who's a very well-known marine photographer, is a friend of ours. And he said, you need to use Provia. He visited us. He was covering the BOC in Cape Town in '92. And he came through the magazine just to take photos of us, and taught me a lot about photography.
That's cool.
He said, it's all about the light. It's the light. I don't care what you take a picture of. You get up there first thing in the morning or late in the evening.
That's when I do all my
middle of the day.
shots.
Don't even.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The golden light.
Yeah.
That's okay. Hollywood and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all. So that kind of got us started with being, we were a household name in the '90s.
Yeah.
People wouldn't talk to us. We were the long hair. Our boat was mechanically in perfect shape. Cosmetically, it was a nightmare because we couldn't afford to paint, re-alger up the hull or something. And sails were patched. Every outboard was held together with wire and rope, but everything worked. And we were kind of the outcasts, and you could feel it with the more affluent cruisers. And then we got our picture in the magazine, and we were on the newsstand once a month, and those same people were now inviting us to their boats for dinner.
Oh, I totally know exactly what you're talking about.
And we were the same people, and it was like, free meal? No, I'll sit and chat with you for a couple hours. It was that's being very cynical about it, but there was definitely a change.
Yeah.
And
But we weren't famous now with social media, you have people who aren't sailors know about you.
Yeah.
And so people who were sailors knew about us, but that's not
Small,
even all.
small.
It was a small group of people,
Yeah.
and of the sailors, it was even a smaller group who, you're talking about Slocum and the Schmiedens, and their books
John
went
Guswell.
into the general public.
John Guswell was my inspiration, my
Yeah.
dad's inspiration. 21-foot boat, hand built in BC.
Right,
come on.
and those books went to the main they crossed over from sailing books.
Yeah, they were adventure stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As much as it's like
And ours
anyone who
went
could
into
appreciate
that.
Jack London could appreciate any of these other. Mariner's Library, I think, was the one that did
Right.
the biggest collection, right?
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah, even Chichester. That gypsy mob
And so that's
around the world.
those are kind of famous.
Oh my God!
But
Looking at those pictures when I was 9 years old, this guy on this boat pouring a bucket of water over his head with flying fish. It's like, that's what.
That's
There it is.
That's the life for me.
That's it.
That's the life for
That's
me.
it right there.
Awesome.
That picture is exactly what I want to do.
Awesome. Well, we'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, James.
Thanks so
it was
much
fun.
Yeah.
for this wonderful conversation
Great to.
and for having me in your beautiful home.
Sure.
And
Hi, Holly.
I'll. Hi, Holly.
Hi, Holly. I haven't looked at your texts yet.
So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And there'll be links to Holly's interview as well, and to Holly's channel, obviously, and also to their book and to the documentary. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching.
Fun.
Let us know what you thought down in the comments, and fair winds until next time.
Yeah. Awesome.
Want to give a big thanks to my guest for joining me for this episode of YARNS, Conversation with Cruisers. The intro and outro songs are sung by Sarah Satya, with the lyrics to the old tune rewritten by myself, James Frederick. You can find any relevant links for the guests in the description of this video. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes.
When I was a little lass, my mother up and told me, "Way, haul away, we'll haul away, Joe. Someday your love will call and take you out to sea. Way, haul away, we'll haul away, Joe." The storms will rise and waves shall fall, and new lands you shall see. Way, haul away, we'll haul away, Joe. Your richest boy will be the stories that you bring me. Way, haul away, we'll haul away together. Way, haul away, we'll haul away, Joe. Way, haul away, we'll haul for better weather. Way, haul away, we'll haul away, Joe. Way, haul away, we'll haul